Hey, welcome to the podcast. Next podcast today, I have a special guest, Adam Taliaferro. Adam Taliaferro was defensive back out of Voorhees, New Jersey in 2000. He joined the Penn State football team. What's going on, Adam?
Hey, Pook, it's great to see you, man. I appreciate you having me today.
Hey, man, it's always love, man. I felt like, when you first got to Penn State, you was like a little brother, man. Every time been hanging out in our room, chilling. Gerald, Tony Johnson, Yaakov, everybody just hanging out and chilling. What's going on, brother?
It's, Everything's good, man. I just like you said, man. You, Bruce, the whole all y'all were just big brothers to us, man. And so just seeing your face, man, and just having the opportunity to talk to you is always an honor and privilege, man. And just thank you for guiding me along the way as a young guy.
Man, you taught us a whole lot, man. Especially with the situation, the injury, the unfortunate injury from a talented out of Voorhees, New Jersey, that was, very excited to be playing ball at that level, had a lot of talent, good dude. So, that was a touching thing for all of us, man. So, coming out of high school, out of Voorhees, New Jersey, did you ever think on to Penn State University?
You know, I didn't follow Penn State that much, growing up, but I really got connected to Penn State when I went to the football camp. My year after my sophomore year, I went
Right.
to camp up there, and then I went up there again the next year after my junior year, and that's when they had offered me a scholarship, to come up and play. And I didn't commit right then, but I just thought, man, this is, Penn State, that was the closest big school to me, and I got some scholarship offers for some other schools, but before my senior season started, I decided to commit to Penn State because I tell people that year when y'all was up there, it was 99 when I committed. Penn State was ranked 1 or 2 in the country, and I just thought hey, there's no better place to go. And just talking to Scrap, Tom Bradley, defensive coordinator,
Right.
he
Right.
said, if you come up, I can't guarantee you're going to play, but you at least get an opportunity. You may get an opportunity early to play. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It's just, you go up there. I had never been up to Penn State prior to going up there for football camp, and you know how it is. You get up there, and it wasn't nobody up there. But then I went to a game that next year, and I was like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, man, it was it was definitely a time, especially we was coming off my freshman year being, like number one recruiting class in the country. And I think when we came in, we was top five team in the country. Sophomore year, the same thing. Junior year, the same thing. And, our senior year, we kind of, we was kind of in a rebuilding mode, right? So we had a lot of these young guys coming in, talent coming in, just young, right? And it was, trying to put it all together, and start all over again.
But the thing that was just I still always remember coming up there as a recruit and walking through the locker room for the first time. As a high school kid, you kind of think, all of us were like the best guys in our area. But when you come up there,
Right.
it's like, man, these is like you're with men now. Like I was just looking at walking through the locker room and seeing you and seeing LeVar. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to play with these guys because
Right.
you could tell you were at a totally different level from every guy was just physically put together. Everybody was you could just see the talent all throughout that locker room. And it was just like, for me, it was kind of intimidating, but then it was exciting because like, man, this is going to be the team that I'm going to be playing on with these guys. And
Right.
it just, for me, it was just one of the most exciting times, that 99 going into 2000 was just, it was a lot of excitement around for me personally around that time.
Right. Right, and it's funny because I think a lot of kids look at it like what you just said, like coming from high school, being the man at your high school, then getting to a university like Penn State or Alabama or Georgia, and you got so many other guys just in that locker room just as good as you. So
Yep.
now you gotta buckle down, and you gotta learn your system, and you gotta get in there and and show that you're supposed to be there, right?
Yep.
And I think you did that. So, and I think we had a lot of talent. We had a lot of guys that could play, right? And I know you was coming out, you was one of the play mainly running back.
Mhm.
And when you got to Penn State, they you end up playing corner, which that's just the sign of an athlete, right? You could play multiple positions on the field. So How was the transition coming from, high school, thinking you're going to play running back and then being switched to corner, or did they tell you in advance?
Yeah. Joe that's what I appreciated from the very beginning. Coach Paterno, Tom Bradley, my recruiting coach was Kenny Jackson. They all say, if you come up, we're going to be playing you at corner. And the thing that really struck me was like they would say, hey, if you come up, you're going to get potentially an opportunity to play. And also, if you look at the NFL, like, I was like 5'10", 185. Like, there's not a lot of 5'10", 185-pound running backs playing in the NFL. But you say you look around, defensive backs and corners playing in the NFL, you've got the size and you have the opportunity if you do what you're supposed to do here to play in the NFL one day. So that was, my goal, like all of us, was to one day hopefully play in the NFL. And the thing that really, stuck with me was just, I had an instant connection with Scrap. He was just, how he is. He's just a guy that you just want to go to bat for. And you guys, I looked around. I remember my first meeting, being in the meeting room with you, Bruce, Bow, B. Scott. It just had so many guys that were willing to just bring you in because, that summer we were up there and they had like the captain's practices. So there was no coaches out there. And me and Gerald out there as young defensive backs had no idea what we was doing. But I remember it was you, Bruce, Bow would always take us to the side after practice, say, hey, hey, young guy, like this is what you need to be doing. This is what you need to be focusing on. And it was just like, man, these are guys that, we're all competing for, time to play, potentially playing in the spots, but they're taking time out to help educate us. And that, that always stuck with me, man. You guys were always willing to just, bring us along as young guys that didn't really know what we were doing out there.
Right. I mean, we got to bring you guys along, right? So, we're going to only be as good as our depth, right? So you never know. It's football, right? So you never know what might happen. I could have went out, Bow could have went out in first game and the season could have been over, from a torn ACL or anything. So we had to make sure you guys was ready to go too. Because if you guys was pushing us and then we was getting better, right? So it's all a competition thing and it's all a thing to push each other to get better. And that's kind of how I always looked at it. So that's kind of how I look.
I remember those first practices when we first put on pads and the way you was hitting people out there, I was like, man, this is not what I do. Like I played running back in high school. I played defensive back. I wasn't really hitting people out there. So it just like it was, about 22 years ago, but I still remember that sound of you coming up, knocking dudes out in practice. I'm like, man, he hitting our own team like this. I can't imagine what he do when he get out there against other squads. But I just feel like it was such a brotherhood, man. I'm smiling because I'm thinking it back to like Teak. It's like the way that y'all embrace it. You hear about. I remember I was a little nervous because you hear about guys, hazing and like all the crazy stuff you hear about. But it was so opposite of what I expected coming in. Like it was just like open arms, in the apartments. Like even before we hit the football field,
right?
We're like brothers. Where y'all went, you took us along with you. And I tell people, it just created a cool atmosphere coming in. So as a freshman, when practice started, I didn't really feel like a freshman anymore. I just felt like one of the guys, and that really helped with my transition, not only on the field, but off the field as well. And I told my parents that like this, I felt like I was actually one of the guys. And I just give y'all so much credit because that's what creates a great team. And you guys were part of those great teams before, we didn't have an opportunity to be a part of that top 5 ranked team, but you all experienced that and really helped share what it was like to be a part of something like that.
Right. And we are a family, right? So, we all come from different parts of the country. We represent Penn State football team, we represent our family, but we all we got we all we got, right? It's the football team. I tell people all the time, like, it's no other sport more team oriented than we need each other. We rely on each other. One hand wash the other, right? So I think for me, especially when it's over, that bond, right? That camaraderie, that locker room, that whole thing, that's what you miss most of about anything, right? It's not more so playing. It's more, the brotherhood, just spending time with the guys, talking, seeing how everybody is. So that's kind of, for me, that's kind of what you miss the most.
100%. I say, I feel like I've been out of college forever, but I still remember those summers when it was just us up there. Like, when
Right.
during summer when there was
Right.
no other people up there except the football guys, man. It just whether it's playing video games or just times outside
Right.
the apartments, just having fun. Those are the things that I hope my son plays one day so he can experience that type of
Right. Right.
brotherhood and bond that I don't feel like you get in any other sport or any other walk of life.
You don't. And I feel like, basketball is, I love basketball, but it's more of an individual sport, right?
Yep.
It's 5 men on the team, but it's not it's a team, but it's not like football, right? And football is the ultimate team sport, right? In order for the running back to be able to run the ball, the front seven got to block. Tight end, offensive guard, offensive tackle, running backs, everybody got to do their job. Even on defense, right? So we run in a scheme, and I'm coming up for safety. The defensive lineman got to kind of like put themselves in there so I don't get blocked, right? So it's ultimate team sport. So definitely agree.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Definitely. So let's talk about October 23rd, 2000, going into Saturday. The game was playing Ohio State. How did you feel? What was your mind frame going into the game?
You know, I just remember being so excited. I mean, as a young freshman, I had earlier that year I broke my thumb and I had a cast on my hand, so
I
I was kind
remember.
of playing with one hand, and
Mm-hmm.
I was getting in a little bit. I was playing special teams, getting in every once in a while on nickel and dime situations. But prior to that game, I remember I got my cast off. Like I was starting to feel like I was finally getting the grasp of the game, the speed of the game. And that week, Scrappy said, "Hey, we may get you in there a little bit more. We may try to work you into the game." So I just remember being so excited. I'm like, man, we playing in the horseshoe. Like this is the Buckeye. Like these
Right.
are the guys I
Right.
watch this game on TV.
On TV.
And,
Right. Right.
and to finally be a part of it, it was just I remember calling everyone I knew just say like watch the game. Even if you just watch me, like I'll be on the sideline. I don't know if I'm gonna be in the
Right.
game, but
Right.
just I'll be wearing
Right.
number 43, so make sure you watch. And I just remember as a young freshman just being so just thrilled to be a part of that game. It felt surreal to be honest with you. Like, man, I'm actually out here playing at Penn State against Ohio State.
Right. And that's, and for us, being still new to the Big Ten, still trying to set our mark as, one of the top tens and in the Big Ten, it was always fun to go to the horseshoe and to go to Michigan to play. Because at the time when we first entered the Big Ten, those two teams were they was the big guys in the conference. Penn State was independent and they was coming with a lot of accolades, but to come and join a conference to where you feel like you got to prove yourself week in and week out, especially when it came to Michigan and Ohio State, which is still the thing today, right?
Yeah.
So you know that's still the thing today. So
And I think, if you look back on that year, we had struggling a little bit prior
right,
to that game. So you think, a game like Ohio State, like this is a game that can really turn our season around. We
right,
can really get
right,
things going. So I just
right,
I know I remember that week leading up to practice. Coach Paterno and all our coaches were saying this could be a game that can really turn the season around. I feel like a lot of guys, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of positivity coming into that game. So it was an exciting time, I think, for all of us.
right. And it's funny. I was looking at the tape of the game the other day,
Yeah,
and it was I think you was to my left side. I think it was.
yeah,
It was in two deep. You was to my left side, I believe. And I saw the toss coming, and I come take one step back, two steps, and then I go attack, and I get double team.
uh-huh.
And when I look at the tape, you was right on the outside of me, and I see you coming up and make the tackle, and it wasn't anything that was hard, right? It wasn't like a crucial hit. It wasn't like it was like a whole lot of contact, and it's just like a average everyday play, right? And I'm like, okay, he fine, he gonna get up. But then when I look over there and I see the way your legs are turned, so okay, something wrong, right? So take me at that point where you was laying there. How what was you feeling?
Yeah, like I remember I tried to like break down because the run back was coming towards me, and I tried to take his legs out, and I made the mistake where I had my head down. The mortal sin of any football player. We
Right.
learn from the age
Keep
of
your head up.
5, 6,
Right.
7. Keep your head up, see what you're hitting.
Right.
I had my head down. But even when I remember going in to make the tackle, and I remember waking like kind of, I don't know if I blacked out a little bit, but I remember waking up on the ground just trying to get up,
Right.
and I tried to gather my legs, and my legs wouldn't move. I'm like, oh man, like, and I tried to move my arms to kind of get myself up, and my arms wouldn't move. So I thought I broke my arm because I couldn't move my arm because there was no
Couldn't
pain.
move.
And I remember looking up, and I remember seeing Bow was like coming over. He's like, come out, come on, Adam, get up. I'm like, and that's what started hitting me. Like I couldn't move. Like, and I started panicking, but I thought I had a stinger because I heard about people getting stingers before and they lose
Right.
sensation, and then
Right.
5, 2 minutes later, they're back up.
It's
So,
back. Right.
so the thought of being paralyzed never went through my mind. But then, our team doctor, Dr. Sebastianelli, came out, and I could see in his eyes that he was a little concerned. So when I saw that, that's when I started really panicking. Like I can't move. Like and they're telling me like just stay calm. Stop moving. And George Salvatore, they just kept me calm. And Coach Paterno, I remember him coming out, and he's just looking over me, and he was like, you're gonna be okay. And that's when I just really started panicking because I realized something was wrong. But again, I never thought that I was paralyzed. I just thought it was a
Right.
stinger. But it still was a bad feeling not being able to move anything.
Right.
So I remember them just laying me there, and they cut my helmet, cut my face mask to take my helmet off, and it felt like an eternity just laying there on the field. And they put me on the stretcher, and as they were wheeling me off, I remember all you guys were coming up and just saying, you're gonna be good, you're gonna be all right. And I wanted to give just the thumbs up to like let you guys know I was okay. My parents, they were watching on
Watching.
TV, so I
Right.
wanted to just give the thumbs up to let them know I'm good. And when I was laying there and I tried to give the thumbs up, I couldn't move my hands. I was like, oh, this is like, this isn't good.
Right.
And they wheeled me, they took me into the ambulance, and that's from that point forward, it just gets foggy. Like I don't remember much of anything. I remember just waking up in the hospital and just felt like it felt like my body was gone. All I could feel was like my head. And
Right.
they told, and I remember asking the doctor what happened, and he's like, you've been hurt, but you're gonna be okay. And my dad flew out. My dad flew out that evening, and he got there, and I remember like, Dad, am I gonna be able to play football again? That's the first thing I asked him was like, can I play?
Of course. Of
Are
course.
you gonna play again? And he's like, son,
Right. Right.
you've been injured. We got bigger issues, but you're gonna be okay. But they never told me the severity of my injury. That night, they told my dad that basically because of the injury, I was never gonna walk again.
Right.
And my parents made the decision not to share that news with me.
Not to
So
share with you. Right.
yeah, so it was just like, man, it was just like a whirlwind. But then after that, it just all just they started injecting, shooting me up with all types of stuff. So I don't remember much after that. They took me into surgery. I got injured that Saturday. I had surgery on Monday, and what I had was what they called a C5 burst fracture,
Right.
and I broke my neck and bruised my spinal cord. And because of the severity of the bruising on my spinal cord, they thought the chance of me ever walking again was going to be pretty bleak because of the
Right.
damage that was done. And
Right.
that's where the journey really began, man. And it's just I look
Right.
back on it, and so many times like, man, why did I just step to the left or step to the right,
Right.
or
Right.
but I feel, and I tell people, if anyone that's had these injuries, everybody would do something differently. No one
Do
wants to
some. Right. Right.
with everything in life. There will never be these type of
Correct.
injuries. So,
Correct.
but the thing that I was so blessed with was when I had my injury. You see, the doctors kept me stable right there. They stopped me from
Right
moving.
there. Right.
Everything they did was 100% by the book. I got injured at Ohio State, which Ohio State has a nationally recognized spinal cord center, literally right across the street from the stadium.
Right.
I got lucky that I got hurt at Ohio State as opposed to getting hurt with us playing at home, because then they would have
At home.
to airlift me to Hershey. That'd have been more time. So although getting injured was bad, I tell people all the time, everything else after that was a blessing,
Right.
because
And I think for us, like, it was almost like time froze. And we all sitting on the field, we waiting. We was like, okay. After a while, he's like, it's serious. Like, what's going on? And then, you land there, and no athlete lay the way you was laying with your legs there, right?
yeah,
So it's like, okay. something wrong, right? And how severe is it? And you could tell from Doc Sebastianelli looking at him, you could tell it was something serious.
Yep.
And George Salvataro, our trainer, so you could tell it was something real serious going on, and you could tell even from Joe, even how Joe was looking and how he was talking, you could tell it was something serious. So I know later on they did tell us, we was blessed in a sense that we was at Ohio State,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because it was right, like you said, they have a top facility in the country when it comes to the neuro spine program. So that was kind of another thing that kind of was a blessing,
Mhm.
for us in that situation. So definitely afterwards. And I know when we got back to school, it was a lot of they would fly some of us out to come see you,
Yep.
right? And they would take us on a private jet to come out and see you. And I think for us, we wanted you back with us, right? But we understood the severity of you needed to be somewhere someone can take care of you, right, and get you back to where how how did you feel when you saw the so much love, not only from Penn State but from everybody in the country?
Right, man. I wish I could put into words uh what that did for me and my family during
Right.
that tough time. And I will never forget that week after I got injured. I started to realize what was going on. Like I realized that I was in tough shape. I realized like I may not ever play football again, and I was going through some really just down, tough times. And that next week we played Purdue, and I remember I was still coming in and out of consciousness, not really being with it. But I remember being up for that game, and the first thing I saw was like I think it may have even been you with like everyone had the 43
The
on the back.
43. Right.
And I remember
Right.
listening to the announcers, and they're like, they were talking about you, how you wanted to wear my number
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
game. And I'm
Yeah.
like laying there, I'm like, man, like I remember kind of smiling, like, because you just think, man, these guys, like, not that it was true at all, but like, man, people just forgot about, like, I don't know if anyone even is like
Right.
thinking about me. And it just blew my mind away to see like how you guys came together for me. Like I look like looking in this like at the game, like everyone having like 43 posters and all types of stuff. It's just like
Right.
I I, I can't put into words that energy that it just gave me seeing how that atmosphere was. Then to see how y'all played that game and to
Oh
beat
yeah, we
the
played
team,
up lights out that game.
like that was like you was like, man, like I still get chills when I watch that game. Like sometimes I'll show that game on the Big Ten Network.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, man, that's when I realized like it's a family, man. Like this is
Right.
really like these
Definitely.
guys are really with me, and I was just like, you know what, I got to do whatever I can to get out of this situation because I was like, not that I was giving up, but I was just sitting there, laying there, feeling sorry for myself. Like I can't put there probably every 5 minutes I was like, I can't believe this happened.
Right.
Why me? Why me? But after that Saturday night, seeing y'all, and then as you said, like every week, you guys would fly out to see me, and for me, it was like practice. Like I want to show you guys every week. I want to show
Right.
you guys that I was doing something different, even if it was just moving
Doing
a
something.
finger,
Right. Right.
moving a toe. I wanted to show like you guys were like my inspiration to keep pushing each and every week because you guys were practicing. I couldn't practice anymore, but I could do therapy. My therapy became my practice.
Correct.
And I say that all the time. Anyone that asks me, I said, of course, your family, your family. My family was fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
but it was my teammates, man, that really got me through that 8 months being in the hospital. It was you guys, man. Like I am forever thankful because I don't think I would have gotten through that without the support of the football team and also the entire Penn State community.
And as much as we was an inspiration for you, you was more of an inspiration for us. Like you said, we were struggling. The season didn't go, the way we thought it was going to go. So, to be able to get behind, and I did go to Joe about one your number, and he was like, let me think about it. And then he was like, just let's just put stickers on the helmets and let's do it that way. I think that's a better way to show. And so I was like, well, you know, we was like, whatever you want, coach, like that's cool.
Yeah.
So you know, and we, you know, I think we all talked about it on a daily basis, you know, in the prayers and the team rah rah. It
Mm.
was always, you know, about Adam. You know, let's go play for Adam. He can't play, so let's go put a show on for Adam. And you know, when the game over, you know, whoever choose to get to go see him this week, you
Yeah.
know, everybody tell them about the game and just make sure, you know, we keep the spirits up. So that was a big thing for us.
That was, I mean, it was such a pick me up for me. Like I said, you expect your friends, your people to be there for the first couple of weeks, but as you said, this wasn't something. This went on for the entire time when I was in the hospital,
Right, right,
8 months. Like people don't
right,
realize this was like every week for eight
right.
months. Guys were coming to see me. Like I, you don't get. Like I said, I'm biased. I only went to Penn State, so but I don't know if
Right.
you get that same type of support, that same type of love from another school or from another group of guys. And
Right.
that's why, I try, 20 years later to stay close to you guys, man, because you got me through some of my toughest of times in life.
And it's funny because you know I feel like you know what you just said about the brotherhood Penn State. I feel like you know I feel like there's no better you know
Mhm.
alumni chapter when you're talking about former players. All right, I know guys that played at other schools, and I feel like the bond that we have is way bigger than any other alumni chapter. Right, when it comes to former players, and I feel like it is a team, and everybody, you know, want to genuinely see everybody do good, right? And I felt like, you know, with you, I think you would always be forever, the Penn State Adam Taliaferro, right? And it was a time in our football career where Penn State was struggling, right?
Mhm.
And you know, it's a whole lot of other stuff going on that we found out later on,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, it was just still that bond and just, you know, the togetherness of the team, right? And once that happened, you know, Penn State, you know, Pennsylvania people, they crazy about their Penn State football team. So you know, that's always a blessing. Let's talk about a little bit more about your rehab at McGee.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
So
was the staff at McGee?
I say McGee, the therapist there, were like they're like angels walking on earth. I when I first got there, I remember them wheeling me in there, and I still couldn't move or walk or do anything
Right,
at that standpoint. And I remember looking around at all the different patients. I'm like, man, I felt bad. Like I'm like, man, I'm around all these disabled people, not realizing like I'm one of them myself. Like I
right,
was one of those disabled. So it took me, I want to say like the first couple of weeks just to really tell myself like this is life now. Like you gotta embrace this process and try to make the most out of it, because if you're just gonna sit here and mope and cry, you're not gonna get any better. And I give my parents a lot of credit, and my brother. They were like, hey, get everything out now. My first day there, they're like, cry, get it all out now, because now we're just
right,
gonna push forward. And
right,
we at McGee, we did 3 hour. We would do 3 therapy sessions a day. It would be 2 hours in the morning, two in the afternoon, and then two in the evening, 2 hours. And the first therapy session, my therapist was, her name is Amy. She's my physical therapist. She was just like, hey, try to move a finger. And I'm like, man, like I remember looking, I'm like trying to move my finger and nothing's happening. And I remember just breaking down, like just crying, because I'm like, man, just last week I'm out playing football at Penn State, and here I
right,
am now. I can't even move a finger. And she
right,
just did such a fantastic job of just helping me understand the process of the recovery, because I just wanted everything to happen instantaneously.
right,
Instantaneously.
right,
The
right,
spinal cord injury is it's the long game. It's like, hey, we're going to try to build each and every part of your body to enable it to function again. So we just, after that moment, I got my cry out. Every day I just attacked it like it was football practice all over again. Like I'm just going to try to work everything I can to get these small wins, and eventually,
right,
I started getting some movement in my toe. And it was strange, but my injury, the left side of my body was coming back faster than the right side. So like my left toe would move, and then it would be like 3 or 4 weeks later, and then my right toe would move. So
Okay.
it was a struggle with, trying to balance out the body because my left side was so far ahead of the right side. But I got lucky because I was put in a clinical trial at that time, which they put you in a basically they put you over a treadmill and they put you in this parachute harness, and the parachute harness holds your body weight, and they essentially simulate the walking motion before you can even walk. So it's trying to get your
Right.
mind and body to remember what it was like to walk again. And again, this wasn't the standard of care, but it was a clinical trial to see if this helps in the recovery process. And for me, once I got on that and into that protocol and into that clinical trial, I felt like it really helped me progress. And after about 3 months, I was able to get to the point where I was able to walk with the crutches. And now that's the standard of care. People do that all the time now when they have spinal cord injuries. So I was lucky and blessed that I was at McGee Rehab, which is a nationally recognized spinal cord center. People from all across the country come to Philadelphia, come to McGee that have
Right.
spinal cord. And I was lucky. I was, 20 minutes away from where I grew up at in South Jersey. So it was a constant grind. But I tell people all the time again, there were days when I was like, man, I don't want to do this. But someone would come to the hospital, teammates would come and say, hey, we pushing you. And that's like, man, it just gave me that extra burst of energy that I always needed to get through those 7 months. So I got there in September. And by the end of December, I was, fortunate enough to walk out with the crutches. I still couldn't walk, independently, but I was walking at that time with the crutches, and it was like,
Right.
man, I'm just, I felt like I was getting there, like I was gonna eventually get back to Penn State at some point. Didn't know when, but I just knew I'd get back at some point.
You said her name was Amy.
Yeah, Amy Bradder was my physical therapist when I was at McGee, and
So
she's still there.
so
She's still there.
she's still there. So JT or Amy?
Oh man, man, hey, they got a lot of similar qualities, man. I tell people, I tell JT, Jeremy, all those guys, man, they would get
Mm-hmm.
after you in the weight room. And I say Amy
Right.
would do the same thing, but just in a 5'3" frame and a female body. Like
Right.
she pushed me further than I thought my body could go when I was, when I couldn't move anything. And I give her, and I worked with multiple therapists when I was at McGee, but they each day they would pour so much themselves into me, just like
Right.
like Jeremy
Right.
and JT did. They had to, they worked with over 100 football players, but they made you feel like you were just as important as any other player. And that's how my therapist made me feel. Because they work with multiple patients throughout the day, but they when they were with you for those 6 hours throughout the day, it was all about you. It was like, hey, how can we
Right.
make you get better? And you wanted to get better for them, just like we
Correct.
wanted to perform for JT and Jeremy when we were in the weight room back in the day.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. Because JT was tough. JT was tough.
We didn't have that
So
awareness
John,
training. That's the only thing good about McGee. We didn't have awareness training.
right. You stay away from Neil Wood and awareness training. Because if you got stuck with Neil Wood, then JT was already pissed. So if you go to awareness training, stay away from Neil Wood.
Shout out to
Don't
Neil
go with
Wood,
Neil.
yo. Neil Wood was my guy. I hope he's doing well today. I haven't spoken to him or talked to him in many years, but he's a name that makes you smile.
Oh man, is it man? He is. Neil Wood was probably. I tell people all the time the story. I said, look, we had a guy on our team. He ain't play much, but you talking about athletic. I said it. It was. I haven't seen too many people that was more athletic than Neil Woods. And I kind of tell people all the time about the story when he got chased by the dogs out from Taft trees, police dogs from Taft trees back to campus, which is what about
That's a
6
little
miles,
that's a
maybe
hike.
7 miles, with no shoes on and outrun dogs. Like I'm like, yo, that dude was just athletic, just super athletic.
Well,
So now today you have a nonprofit. What's your nonprofit called? What is your goal with your nonprofit?
yeah, I can't take any credit for it because when I was in the hospital, when I was going through my recovery, as I said earlier, we weren't sure. The doctors weren't sure if I was ever going to walk again, and
Right,
I had so much support from the public and so many people that were raising funds and raising money for my lifetime care, not knowing if I would ever recover. So
right,
all this money was raised, and my high school coach and a few other coaches in South Jersey said, "Why don't we create a foundation to help other people in your similar situation. So
Mhm.
they created, that we called it the Adam Taliaferro Foundation, and the mission is to help uh, folks that have spinal cord or any other type of catastrophic, life changing injury, financially and emotionally through their recovery. So our foundation today is entirely 100% volunteer, and our goal is to raise money to help people get through their injuries. We say we try to step in where insurance steps out, because unfortunately when you have these type of injuries, insurance doesn't
Right.
pay for all your life necessities, everything that you need to recover, and we try to provide that type of financial assistance to just make their lives a little bit easier. So I've been blessed. We got a
Right.
great board that dedicates so much of their time to help patients, and ultimately my role is to just be that voice to talk to people who are going through these injuries and say, hey, I've been through this. It
Right.
helped me so much. Of course, my teammates and so many others out there helped me, but it helped me so much to talk to someone who had actually been through it. Like, hey, man, I broke my neck. I had a spinal cord injury here. So when someone would tell me they were walking, like, man, if they can do it, I can do it too.
I
So
can
I
do it
try to,
too. Right.
yeah, I try to provide that type of support and inspiration to folks that are going through, these horrible injuries.
Right. While you maybe you didn't start it, you was the inspiration behind it, and you are the face of it. So I think, like you said, having that person that someone can call and talk to that's been there and done that, and kind of give them a ears. I mean, because I can talk to people about it all day long, being that I
Yeah,
work, I worked in the business for 10 years, but I can't relate to them, right? So if I can pick up the phone and and I'm going through a similar situation, I can call someone to talk to that been through it and that overcame it.
yeah.
Their words mean a lot more, right? Well, I might take it in a lot more than someone that hasn't actually experienced it.
Exactly, and that's what I try to do. We get calls, from folks all across the country, and I said, anyone that's willing to talk, I'm happy to talk to them. I'm always hesitant to just reach out and call people, because I know when I was going through my injury, I didn't want to talk to many people the first few weeks of my injury. It took me some time
Right,
to
right,
get comfortable. So I always, I put it out there, say, hey, you can call me whenever you're ready, because people process these injuries at different times. Someone may be
correct.
injured, may be willing to talk the very next day, or some people may say, I need a month, I need 2 months. So, I'm just thankful to have that opportunity to bond and to connect with people that are going through these injuries.
Right, definitely kind of like let let them when they ready
Right.
and to talk and ready to take the next steps, then because if you force it on them, then it's not gonna go well, right? So
Yeah. And that's
they gotta be willing and ready.
you're so right, because there's so many good intentioned people that say, hey, my brother got injured, so I'm gonna give you his number, and I need you to call him. And I'm like, no, like I never feel comfortable reaching out to people. Like, I just here's my number. Whenever you're ready, call me.
Call me when you're ready. Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely understand. I know the family, the kids, the wife, Aaron,
Uh-huh.
and 2 kids, what, Chloe and Cruz.
Chloe Cruz, yeah. So my wife, I met my wife at Penn State. She was a swimmer. She was on the swimming team at Penn State. So after I got injured, I came back to Penn State in '01 I basically had to re-enroll as a freshman all over again, because I got injured so early in the school year that I had to take that year off. And it was funny when I came back. Aaron we had BBH, those athlete
Right. Right.
classes.
Right. Right.
We kind of was like kind of that was it, and
Right.
we graduated Penn State in '05, and we've been together ever since. And she's 2015 had my son Cruz, who's 7 now. Then I got a daughter Chloe, who's 5. So you know how it is, man. Just trying to
Right.
keep up these days.
Just trying to keep up.
I'm
Right.
just a
Definitely.
chauffeur.
Definitely. So let's go back one to Miami State College, playing University of Miami. I believe it was 2001.
Yeah, yeah,
And how did we come about where Adam would lead the team out the tunnel?
yeah. It was one of those weekly trips, and I was laying there and Scrap and Tom Bradley. I think Joe was down at that same time, and we were in the room, and I was still laid up. I couldn't walk or anything, and I can't remember if it was Scrap or Joe. They're like, you're gonna lead the team out of the tunnel the
Sound
next
like scrap.
season. Probably Scrap.
Sound like scrap.
It was
Right.
one.
Sound like right.
As I think about it, because me and Scrap, we were talking about that like a year ago. It was Scrap. You're gonna lead the team out of the tunnel next year. You know how
Right.
it's
It
going. I'm
sound
like,
like
yeah.
scrap.
I'm like, yeah, all
Definitely sound.
right. And it was one of those things where it was a joke, but it became more serious as I started to recover. And Scrap kind of kept with me. He's like, when you come back, you're gonna lead the team out the tunnel. And it just started to kind of spread a little bit. And I, was fortunate enough to get out the hospital and got back up to Penn State that May, I think, for the first summer session. And that's where we kind of started on the journey. And we talked about JT and Jeremy earlier, but JT and Jeremy, those guys, man, they embraced me like I was a football player again. That my goal was working towards every day, strengthening
Right.
my body to be able to walk out of that tunnel. And George Salvatore, man, I spent more time with George that summer than I think anybody, man. I still thank him. I thank him to this day because he had a whole entire football team. Like he had all y'all that were actually on the field playing, getting ready for a football season. But he would spend so much time with me working on stretching and different. George always had some type of crazy exercises he would come up with,
Right.
and
Right.
he even took me all the way out to Pittsburgh to see like the spinal cord injury specialist to work on like my walking. And we worked that entire summer because I still was walking with crutches when I got back to Penn State, and they did wonders for me. I can't say enough about like our strength and training staff up there because
Right.
they didn't. Again, I couldn't play football anymore, but they invested so much time in me to get ready for that moment. And so when I got, September 1st, we were playing in Miami. And again, another experience where I'm like, man, I wish I was playing. But this is like, that Miami team was like a team for the
They
ages.
was loaded.
They was loaded, man.
They
And
was loaded.
I didn't, I mean, going into that, I didn't realize how looking back on it, I'm like, man.
Oh yeah, they loaded. Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I was just so excited to just be able to come out one more time and one, thank my teammates like that were there, my brothers, and let them know how thankful I was for them and let them see that I was like, essentially back. But also thank, the Penn State community and so many folks that were watching on TV to let them know that, I'm good and your prayers and everything were so needed. So I remember that night like it was yesterday, they, walking up to that tunnel. And I just remember looking out and seeing just people, how it is at those night
Right.
games. It's packed.
Right. Right.
And they announced my name. And I remember when they announced my name, I got nervous because I'm like, man, I don't want to trip. I don't want to fall because I still wasn't,
Right.
even to this day, I still walk wobbly.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
I started taking my first steps. And as I'm walking out, like I just hear the crowd keep getting louder and louder as I'm taking, each step. I'm like, oh my God, like I started feeling like, like myself again, like I could, like an athlete again. And I remember just trying every step. I tried to like walk a little bit faster and faster. And I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm gonna try to like run just like a little bit because I hadn't ran since I got injured.
Right.
And I remember just like trying, and my legs felt like they're 50 pounds each. And I start like picking my legs up and just quick little run. And it was just one of the you know outside of the birth of my kids, that was probably one of the best experiences of my life because it was just a full circle moment, letting people know like I was able to get through that, and so many people that had a part of my recovery. All my physical therapists, all my doctors were at the stadium. All you guys were right behind me, and it was just a great moment for me. It's something that I always remember. Just I'm so thankful for Penn State to give me that opportunity because again, my injury had happened over a year ago, and
Right.
we were on a whole new season. But it was just a cool experience, man. Something I always remember.
But but it's family, right? So it's funny because it was my rookie year,
Yep.
and I think they told me on Friday it was like, "Oh, Adam gonna be lead us out the tunnel." So I was like, "Well, I gotta come then." So I was like, let me get me a flight out of Jacksonville." So I ended up booking a flight that night,
Yeah.
flying out Saturday morning, and I'm standing over there on the sideline watching. I'm like, "Okay, he about to try to run." And like I said, you started getting little faster, a little faster. Okay, I'm about to start running. And it's funny. So you ran a little while, for a few yards, and then you see, the lion come over next to you. I was like,
Catch me,
okay, I
man.
hope he, right, right. I said he got to get him because he about to start running. So it was exciting. It was a night game. Joe didn't really like night games. It was a night game, and it was electrifying in there. And I think it was electrifying already, right? But now when people find out, the fans find out, oh, Adam gonna be at the game, and he gonna lead us out the tunnel. Now you talking about putting that whole last year in perspective, right?
Yeah,
So you're talking about from almost a year exactly, almost,
yeah,
right?
yep,
So to where you lead us out the tunnel, and the energy and the atmosphere in there was just crazy.
man. And it was like again, it felt surreal because my teammates, but then y'all were the first class of guys like that. I'm like, man, like I got friends playing in the NFL. Like this, it felt so cool. Like how it is, like something
Right,
you always dreamed about. But it was like the first time, like guys that I saw, like share a locker room with, are like
right.
now achieving their dreams, like playing like you and Bow. Like it was just like man, and like you said you was at the game. It was cool, man. It was
Man, definitely, definitely,
in the words.
definitely. Out the Penn State a couple years ago, you got your law degree from Rutgers.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to, like all of us, wanted to play in the NFL, and that was no longer an option. So I decided.
Right.
I remember starting to talk to people, and they're like, "Hey, you could maybe be a sports agent." So I decided I wanted to go to law school to be a sports agent. So right after I got a graduate from Penn State in '05 and went straight to Rutgers Law with the thought I was going to be. And I that summer I interned with the NFL Players Association down in DC,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
for the first half of the summer, and the second half of the summer, I interned with actual NFL agent, and I realized, man, like that's better than me. But I was like,
Right.
oh,
A
first
whole
thing, that's
nother
a crazy
game.
business. That's a whole nother
Right.
ball of wax.
Right. Right.
So I still want to stay involved in law, but I was like, man, I can't be an agent because that's just too crazy. So I went the corporate route and graduated from law school in 2008, and started working at a law firm in Philly in 2008, and was working corporate litigation for 5 years. And then I went in house with a company called Bristol Myers Squibb Pharma Company, where I work there to this day. So I've been at Bristol Myers for 10 years now.
And what's your role at Bristol Myers?
So I was a lobbyist for him when I first got to BMS. So as a lobbyist, I was advocating with state governments on behalf of Bristol Myers, and then I got elected to the New Jersey legislature 7 years ago. So it was a conflict to be working as a lobbyist for a company and serving in the
Right.
legislature. So
Right.
Bristol
Right.
Myers. So I lead our patient advocacy effort. So I work closely with patient advocacy organizations to help them understand health policies that impact their access to medication. So we want to make sure that the policy environment is conducive to patients, regardless of their ability to pay, their zip code, that they get access to the best medications that they need. So I've been doing this. Like I said, I've been in part of the U.S. policy and government affairs team at Bristol Myers for the last 10 years, but now I work really closely with patient advocates, which is like a dream for me because I still consider myself a patient to this day. So getting to interact with people that are overcoming, cancer or HIV or cardiovascular issues, I feel like such a close bond with these people. So it's a great role for me, and I feel like I'm making an impact on folks that are going through similar struggles that I went through when I was going through my injury.
So how long? Speaking of politicians, how long have you been in politics?
I was in politics for 11 years. I started out
11
at the
years.
county level. I started out at the county level. I was a county commissioner, and then like I said, I moved up to the state level where I served in the New Jersey General Assembly, which is you got the General Assembly and the New Jersey Senate, which makes up the Jersey Legislature. And I served in the New Jersey General Assembly for 7 years up until 2020. And that was that concluded my time. So I'm no longer in public office anymore. But
Okay.
it's certainly a learn. I tell people it's a lot like sports, man. It's very
Right.
competitive. Uh,
Right.
you know, you're dealing with a lot of people. Your teammates, and you just
Right.
got to be able to manage and deal with people. But it was certainly a learning experience going through that process.
Right. Do you do any rehab? Are you still doing the rehabs today?
Yeah, so for me, I'm 40 now, get ready to turn 41. So just like in anyone that didn't have these injuries, as we get older, your body start getting
Right.
tighter
Right.
and all that.
Right.
So
Right.
I do a lot of stretching because of my injury.
Okay.
My muscles get tighter than a normal person's would. So I do every morning, every evening I stretch. And then the big thing I do is I do the elliptical because it's hard for me to run, but the elliptical for 30 minutes is something that really helps keep me loose. And then I
Right.
work with a personal trainer that comes to my house, every other Sunday. He was a therapist at McGee to
Oh,
help
cool.
just put me through different exercises because with this injury, if you don't stay on top of it, you will lose. I will lose what I've gained over all these years.
Right.
So it's just really
Right.
important for me to stay as flexible and move as much as I can because it'll be easy as as I progress in age to lose a lot of the recovery that I've made to this point.
Right. The kids, do they realize the impact their dad has had on like college football and the Penn State community?
I was so thrilled. This year was the first time I got to bring them up to Penn State for the first time. Or got to see you, man. It was so good to see you
Hmm.
at the Ohio State game. And I don't think they from my injury they know I got injured. They see how I walk
Right.
and they'll laugh because they know I can't catch them when they run.
Right.
And they've seen the video of me getting injured. And so my son who's 7, he's starting to understand like my story a little bit more. But and
Hmm.
they've had me come speak at his school, so he's like, why the heck they have you come speak at the school? So he thinks it's funny, but they I tell them all the time it's about the people that are around you. I
Right.
even at the young age I say you got to surround yourself with just good people because I was so fortunate. And people say, Adam, it's great you overcame your injury. But as I said earlier, I wouldn't have got that injury if I was surrounded by my teammates,
Right.
by the PCA community, by great doctors, great physical therapists. It's so important to be surrounded by just great people. And I've been so blessed to have been surrounded by just great people, starting with my parents and my family and it going on and on from there. I just been so blessed in so many different ways.
Definitely, definitely appreciate it, man. It was an honor to have you on today. You know how I feel about you. I love you, man. I'm glad to see you doing good. Glad to see the family. Anytime I can help with anything, always feel free to give me a call.
Man, it's how they say feelings are mutual. The love for you and all, I mean, guys that were just big brothers to me, even to this day, that I'm just thankful, man. I just so honored that you even thought of me to be a part of this and just to see what you're doing now. Is I'm not surprised, because you've been just ahead of the game for all these years. But just thank you for having me. Great to see you, man. And it's just like you say, brothers for life in this thing, and
Definitely,
we'll keep it going. But I'm just thankful and so excited to be a part of this platform.
definitely, man. Appreciate it. Tell the wife I say hello. Go
You
take
do
care
the
of them
same.
kids, and I'll talk to you another time.
Sounds good, my friend. Please do the same. Tell the family we said
I
hello.
definitely will. Appreciate it, boss.
All right, brother.
All right.
My name is Adam Wolf, and back in 2000, completely changed. My fifth game of my freshman year at Penn State, I went in to make a tackle and broke my neck. And I remember like it was today, waking up on the ground, not being able to move anything. And although the thought of being paralyzed never I knew.
Pitches it back to Westbrook at the 20. Westbrook's down for a loss. As Taliaferro is down for the Giants.
It was a hard hit. I said, you had to make that hit before. Then he didn't get up.
We're just all
says, make sure Adam Taliaferro's okay.
They took me off the field and did the CAT scans and MRIs and quickly realized that I had a spinal cord injury that had severely bruised my spinal cord, and the chances of me ever walking again were very slim. And at that point, I realized in order to my injury, I need people to help me out.
Adam Taliaferro paralyzed while making a tackle for gain at Ohio State in 2000. Parents probably knew. But through amazing hard work and support, a miracle began to unfold.
Good sets for 2 minutes.
He told me, my son, quadriplegic, and that killed. That's when you really, for all intents and purposes. But that's when I just said, no, my boy's gonna make it. My boy's gonna make it.
3 months later, the miracle was complete. Adam walked out of McGee Rehabilitation Hospital in Philadelphia. In early September 2001, Adam Taliaferro made a triumphant return to Penn State, where he was introduced to a crowd of over 100,000 fans at Beaver Stadium. Lions. Miracle continues as Adam embarked with one of the pharmaceutical companies while also serving Jersey State Assemblyman. The Adam Taliaferro Foundation was formed in 2001, shortly following injury, by a group of Adam's friends, family members, and coaches who wanted to help other Delaware Valley patients and families dealing with spinal cord injuries.
The first time that I meet any patient that's going through a spinal cord injury, I tell them they're going to get better. No doubt about they're going to get better. Walking should not be the indicator for success, but the situation that you're in, the physical condition that you're in right now, needs some improvement.
The old saying, there but for the grace of God go I think that never comes out loud and clearer than when you work with something like our foundation and you individuals who suffer through these unbelievable injuries. This is an injury that not only affects the individual, it affects the whole family. Devastating, and in the blink of an eye, their lives change. You see the courage that not only the individuals, the injury, but also what they have, and it's an inspiration to you to do something and to help. The Adam Taliaferro Foundation that's what our goal is. That's what our mission is. We provide financial and emotional and educational support for these victims.
The Adam Taliaferro Foundation has raised over $1 million since 2001 and has helped dozens of Delaware Valley patients and their families. Together with the foundation's partner, McGee Rehabilitation Hospital, the Taliaferro Foundation has provided financial, emotional, and educational resources to these patients and their families through various and spinal cord injuries occur and with no notice, and they have lifelong impact on patients and families.
The injury happened in a split second. The most stupid of circumstances. I was opening the door to my house to let the meter reader come in, and as I was walking backwards, I tripped over a box that I might have left on the floor. It fell back, hit my head on the wall a couple feet above the floor, my neck, and I was immediately unconscious. And then over weeks, when I was transferred to McGee Rehab Hospital in Philadelphia, it slowly began to sink that I was in a completely new world, which I hadn't volunteered for. It just happened.
When an injury like this occurs, it doesn't just affect the the person that has the injury, it affects the whole family. It's like the whole family gets an injury because, you know, whether it be caretaking or you have to adjust, you know, to the situation, and eventually, you know, it becomes a part of everyone's life.
I got the opportunity to be that connection with the rehab world and to help to sort out what would things that would be most advantageous for the foundation to spend its foundation funds on to help individuals. And so my role has really evolved with the awards committee that we have, who sorts the who sees the applications, reviews them, sort of figures out what would be appropriate use of the foundation funds in respect to where else could this individual receive help, or is this charitable foundation the last resort for helping someone?
Volunteer your time or give a donation or help in any way that you feel. Information is on the show. Get involved with us. We welcome anybody. We look for each and every day. And if you're passionate about helping patients, you're right for this organization. So thank you so much. Look forward to you. Our mission.